that it calls me.
Right. So don't mean to cut you off. Now, wasn't it an incident where you were actually in the bank and they called you and the phone rung?
Yeah, that was like years later. I did this for years. This is while I was still just, these were little things. I mean, this was
Just
little. This was before I started. Like what happened was it got to the point where anytime underwriting for the bank would say, "Hey, we need this."
right.
I would think, how
Now I
that
gotta
I
do
can't,
this.
I don't have that. Like I don't
Right.
have that. How can I trick them into believing that that's true? That I do have that's real. How do I fake a bank? They want to
Right.
know this guy has $60,000 in the bank, or they're
And
not
you
going
were
to get
able
the
to
loan. How
fake
do I
sun
do it?
tresses and all that.
So I start making bank statements, or and then you get to a bank that they say, well, we're going to call the bank statements on the bank. So I go, okay, well, that means they got to call me. So that means
Right.
I got to make, from now on, I have to have my own bank. So now I have to design a bank website. I have to get a phone. So when they call the bank, I have to register the phone. I have to use a real bank routing number and bank number. I have to write the whole website. I have to get checks from the bank, my own bank, and um, I have to get bank statements so that I can dummy up all the bank statements.
Right.
Now you think that's a lot of work, but I only have to really do it once. Now I have my own bank. So this problem never comes up again. So you
So
get to that
basically,
point.
you were using the same bank and the same information for everyone. So they just
Well,
called
no,
the
no,
same
no,
one.
no, because most people have their own. Most people don't have the same problem. So you might not make enough money on your W-2 job. The next guy, so I only have to fix your W-2s. The next guy, his problem may be he doesn't have enough money in the bank. Well, I've got a bank. The next guy, his problem might be that. So what happens is you keep getting these people, everybody's got a problem. Like they went to Bank of America and Bank of America turned them down. They went to SunTrust Bank, SunTrust turned them down. They came to me. That's the guy you want. Like that was the guy I wanted. I want him to have been turned down. I want to know he's in a fucking shitty position.
Right.
So when I tell him my broker fee's $4,500 and I'm rolling it into your loan and your interest rate is 9%, or you don't get the house, then you know what he says? I mean, all right. I mean, I don't have a choice. I've been turned down by two or
And
three
no
other
choice
places.
but to do it now.
Right. Like
Exactly.
you don't have to do it. You can stay in your apartment.
But he wants it that bad that
Well, he wants it that bad. And then, sometimes they would always say, well, I'm not paying 9% interest. And you go, okay, well, then you can just keep paying 100% interest. When what do you mean? I don't pay 100% interest. Oh, really? Isn't your
crazy.
rent 100% interest? You live in your apartment for 10 years and you sell it. Do you own it? Do you own any portion of it?
No.
100% of everything you paid in is interest. It's all gone. So don't sit here and tell me that I don't want to pay 9%, but you're willing to pay 100%.
100%. That's
Right. And you're paying, you now own the house. You're building equity. The house is getting more valuable. All you're doing right now is paying your landlord's rent. You're paying
right.
your landlord rent, and his house is becoming more and more valuable. And you're paying his mortgage.
You're building the equity up on the house for him.
I mean, he's what a fucking deal that is. So, my point is that I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and at some point, the FBI shows up.
Mm.
They closed me down. Not they didn't close me down. They indicted me. A couple of people that I knew, they ended up getting busted, and then
Mm-hmm.
they wore a wire on me. And then so now I know the FBI is interested in me. So I get a lawyer and I go to the FBI and I plead guilty to wire fraud. And so I get 3 years probation, but I can't run the mortgage company anymore. So I run it for like 3-4 years, and so now I can't run it. So I sell it to a guy who's like a CPA,
Okay.
and he's paying me like $8,000 a month to stay on as like a consultant. And in the meantime, I start a development company to start kind of developing an area and also to start flipping houses. So, but I didn't want, but flipping houses sucks.
Did you ever get to wholesaling with the houses? Or your dad was just never your field with wholesaling?
No, I didn't.
You just wanted to buy and flip, fix and flip.
I mean, I didn't want to do that, bro. Listen, I don't, what, I mean, that to me, that's a lot of work. Like,
It
here's the
is.
problem. When you buy those houses in those areas, right? Like shitty areas. What area, where are you?
I'm in Houston right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's perfect. Like Houston, I don't know.
I'm
The
from
market,
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, though. The area, the houses in the bad areas, yeah,
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
you can buy
cheaper.
them for you probably now they're going for 70 and 100,000. But back then they were going for you get a shitty house, you get a house for 50 grand. You know, it needed work.
Foreclosed or not foreclosed?
No, no, just to well, I mean, sometimes they're foreclosures, sometimes they're just somebody died, sometimes it's just unlivable and somebody buys them. You know, you go to like a wholesaler who's bought a bunch of houses and you say, look, I'll give you 60 grand for that house. And he says, okay, and you give him 60 grand. But the problem is now I got to dump 20 grand in the house. Now I got 80 grand in it. And I got to try and sell it for what, 100, 110, 120? What am I going to make? 20 grand?
No money.
That's a
No
lot.
money.
That's a lot of money to put out in the hope that I sell this house in a shitty area where most of the buyers are not good buyers. They're not good qualified customers. So what I did was I decided that the smartest move was to kind of just come up with the customers myself.
Right.
And make my own customers. So I started making synthetic identities. You know, this was before anybody was making synthetic identities.
And is this the part where you start coming up with the crazy names like from the movies and stuff?
Yeah, yeah, Mr. Like Michael White and James Red, Brandon Green.
It's
You
all
know,
colors and stuff.
yeah, yeah, from Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, he's a great producer and a great actor.
Great. So, yeah, there was a movie called the Usual. No, wait, was it? No, Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. Yeah.
So, yeah, I started making these fake people. I figured out how to get Social Security to issue me Social Security numbers to kids that people that don't exist, right? So I'd make a fake shot record and a fake birth certificate, and I'd go in and I'd say that my 10-year-old son, you know, had just been born, and he was born with a midwife, and I'd give them the stuff, and they'd say, "Oh, okay," and they'd
just type it up.
10 days later, I got myself a Social Security number.
Easy as that.
Yeah.
Were people using CPNs back then?
I mean, no, they weren't. But I mean, no, but listen, all a CPN is, you know, I know everybody's going to say, oh, no, they're this, they're that, they're this. But the truth is the CPNs are just like Social Security numbers that just haven't been issued.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, or maybe they've been issued, but they aren't being used. They're just because they'll eventually be issued. There's just a random number that isn't associated with
born today. So
can you hold on? Somebody just rang the doorbell.
Sure.
Weird.
There you guys have it. Having a great conversation with Matt Cox. You hear what he's saying? Take notes of what he's saying. Take notes of the conversation we're having because you can very well gain a lot of information from this. So let's keep going.
Sorry about that. I didn't.
Oh, good.
So yeah, that was just so they were newly issued Social Security numbers, and I would get like 3 secured credit cards, and I'd make the payments, and in 6 months I had like 700 credit scores, and then I'd buy the houses in those names. So I'm buying the house in like James Red's name, and he would buy 5 houses.
Right.
But the problem with that then was that.
And this was where the appraiser comes in at, right?
Well, I mean, an appraiser, but the real problem is that the houses in that area are all selling for $75,000, right?
Right.
So what I need to do is I'm buying the houses for 50. So I need them to appraise higher. Because right now, if I have this guy, James Red, buy a house and refinance it, what am I going to get out? 10 grand, 20 grand?
Nothing.
That's not fucking, that's way too much work.
Too much.
Even if you get the guy to buy 5 houses and refinance it 5 times, you know, those houses, each one, maybe 100 grand. Like I'm not doing this for 100 grand. So what I did was I would buy the houses and I would record the value of those houses for like $200,000. So I'm buying houses for 50,000 and I'm recording the value at 200, 210, 220. And you buy enough houses in an area, the whole area goes up. Doesn't matter that the houses haven't improved, but there's so many houses selling for, like if everybody's
this amount of money is only going to be worth the value of the area is going to go because these houses are worth the same amount. So
Right. People start thinking their house is worth 80,000, 100, 110, 130. Oh my gosh, my house is worth 200,000. Those two houses over there just sold for 200,000. They didn't. I bought them for 40 and 50,000, but they don't know that.